go live button. So, yep, meeting is being live streamed. Yes. Let's just wait for it to come up on the screen over here. Done redirecting. Okay. All right. Let me throw you the link to the chat. Let me throw it to you in Discord. Paste. Okay, that link there should take you to the YouTube live, which is live right now. Let me just unmute you.
All right, just going to grab that link.
Yeah, and just it will also have audio on it as well. So just mute that when you log in there so you don't get feedback. Good morning, Greg. How are you, pal?
Hey, good afternoon, Ian. Good afternoon, Leo. I'm good, thank you.
Hey, Greg. Very early hours.
Yeah, thank you. I do have some technical issues with my camera. For some reason, it won't turn on.
Mate, those technical issues don't have something to do with the fact that it's 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning over there, is it?
Possibly. Possibly. I'm unable to fix them, whatever it is. So I'll have to do without.
All right, terrific, mate. I'm just waiting we're doing a live. We're actually already broadcasting live to YouTube right now. I'm just waiting for it to catch up here to see you jump your image also drop onto the live. Let's see, is that? Make sure I don't have to do something else on my side. No, I think that it's just that YouTube is a little bit behind. Let me just unmute the audio, see where we're up to.
It's
this will test
early in the morning for YouTube too.
Oh, it's because you don't, of course, it's because you don't have any video stream. That's why nothing's showing up there. It obviously only takes, I thought it might show your photo. Oh, there we go. It looks like we're getting.
Well, I've just turned on my MacBook FaceTime camera, which is closed.
Okay. Let me just unmute this so I can just make sure we can at least hear you.
I'll turn it off. Good. So you're expecting lots of people?
Okay, just bear with us for a sec, Greg. I'm just listening to the audio channel on YouTube just to make sure that why can't I hear you, Greg?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Right, now we can hear you. Oh,
good.
Right, I've just turned off my YouTube. So guys, just to let you know, the YouTube live is running probably about 30 to 60 seconds behind us. So when we get to Q&A, we'll ask our questions, but it's not like we're going to be able to get an instantaneous answer. So that's about the best that we can get for the moment. Alrighty, well, we might kick off, given the fact that it has just gone 2 o'clock, and all of the promo had suggested people drop on at 2 o'clock in YouTube. Just to let you guys know, if you can't see it, we do have, it looks like 7 people watching live at the moment. We've got Roy, we've got Ashis, we've got Daniel, we've got Krill, and guys, if anybody else does join us on the live, just pop us a message on there so we can. So that we know that you're here, and really good to have you all. Well, guys, this is the first, as you'll know, the first Helium Down Under video that I've recorded for 6 months. I actually was surprised. I did a little bit of a test earlier on with Leo, and that was where it was actually obvious. I looked back and I thought, my God, I haven't done a video for 6 months. So for all of you who had been following the channel for some time, I'm glad that you're still with us. I'm sure that we have probably lost many along the way, but guys, the focus of the call here today is HIP 70 and other general helium discussions. I've got on the call with me today two learned gentlemen who know a heck of a lot more about helium, IoT, and the HIPs than what I do, because I might have a camera and I might have a microphone, but what I don't have is a whole lot in the way of knowledge of all these HIPs, which is part of the reason there haven't been many videos over the last 6 months. But we've got Leo from South Australia, who we'll meet in just a moment, and we've got Greg, who is actually on the call from the UK. Greg, what time is it over there right now?
Just one quick correction. I'm in France. Hi, everybody in Australia. It's 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning.
6 a.m. and you're in France at the moment. Is that correct? Or you are in France?
Yeah,
is that where you're
correct.
from? Okay,
I live in France. I'm half French, half English.
Well, mate, I hear that you're going through, I mean, Europe's going through a bit of a power crisis at the moment, and they've actually turned the Eiffel Tower off. So where are you getting power right now to run your laptop from? That's a joke.
I'm getting it from the main grid. I think, yeah, I mean, a lot of those news reports are, I think, looking forward to winter, where there's likely to be some issues, or they're planning for, what might come. But so far, so good. We are 24/7 on with the lights.
Awesome. Okay, mate. Well, listen, we won't. What we'll do is we'll cross over to Leo. This is the first time that Leo's been on one of the Helium Down Under calls. I've spoken to I've spoken to Leo a handful of times through Discord, but I think from memory, this is the first time that I've actually seen being on a video call with Leo. So it's actually good to see the people that you talk to. So Leo, if you wouldn't mind taking a couple of minutes, mate, just to give us a bit of a background on yourself. Those that are on our AU 915 Discord channel will know you very well, because you're very, very active in there. But for those who are coming into this video as a result of the YouTube audience or Facebook, they may not know you. So if you wouldn't mind just taking a couple of minutes to introduce yourself to us.
Yeah, Leo Gaggle. I run a small company in South Australia called Open Sensing as my day job. So we're focusing on IoT, LoRaWAN, and system integration for IoT products into largely regional areas. So our focus is actually on the regions rather than the big metropolitan areas. Ag tech and sort of the local government, the focus there. And as part of my volunteering effort, I'm the chairperson of the Growing Data Foundation, which is also sort of playing in the environmental, open data, open standards field. And we've sort of been the we started the Things Network in South Australia here about 4 or 5 years ago, and been very active in LoRaWAN ever since. You mentioned me as a HIP expert. That's I'm not sure if that is correct. I had to learn the very hard way how these HIPs work, and submitted a couple now. So yes, it's through the school of hard knocks, I would say.
Well, mate, definitely by comparison to myself, I consider you a HIP expert. But that does not take very much knowledge to elevate yourself above my knowledge. But Leo, it's awesome to have you here, mate. And what regardless if you're a HIP expert or not, it's just fantastic to actually have somebody on these calls where folks can listen into people who actually use the network and actually have a high level of, well, at least a moderate to high level of knowledge of actually how the network works. It's not just a matter of plugging a magic money-making machine that most people probably on the call here were introduced to Helium as a result of the crypto. You've come at it from a user base. So fantastic, mate. We'll come back to yourself shortly. Just we might take a moment just to, because this is the first time I've ever spoken to Greg. Greg, would you mind giving just a minute or two, mate, on what your background actually is, how you come to be involved in Helium, and what you can bring to our call today?
Sure, thanks. So, unlike Leo and yourself, I'm not a Helium user. I was sort of invited via a common colleague, I guess, in Australia, who works for the HBAR Foundation, a foundation that helps grow the Hedera ecosystem, Hedera being a public distributed ledger or a blockchain, although we're not a blockchain. And I'm a developer advocate for Swells Labs, which is a company that is entirely dedicated to growing the Hedera ecosystem and building the Hedera network software. So we're contracted out, if you want, by Hedera as an independent entity. And Leo wanted to work on an alternative proposal to HIP 70. And I guess as an expert in all things Hedera, I joined in to help him with some of the finer details of how Hedera operates. So yeah, just and to be clear, I'm not a Helium token holder or of any kind. And to many, this may seem like an oddity or a lack of buy-in. I happen to work with hundreds of projects on a daily basis, and I don't own any project tokens simply because it's a conflict of interest for me. And I don't want to be unduly influenced by potential financial interest that I might get from one project or another. So I stay completely away from all of that, and it helps with avoiding any insider trading as well.
Fantastic, mate. Well, that's actually really good to know, given the fact that I didn't have a background. It's great that we can sort of rely on the knowledge that you might want to share with us today without sort of feeling like it's being tainted by some sort of personal attempt to do something to improve your own situation. So, mate, really, given especially, mate, that at the time of day it is, and that you're doing this, as far as I know, unless you've got some arrangement with Leo, I mean, you're here just to help us with the knowledge, and really appreciate that.
Yeah. Although I should say, sorry, in the interest of full transparency, I have an interest in Hedera being successful. So that's the conflict of interest I can declare. But yeah, that's I hope that was obvious to everyone.
Absolutely, mate. Well, what I can definitely tell you is that our audience that we're going to have over here in Australia, in our little sort of corner of the world, I don't think there's anybody going to be doing any form of audit to try and find out if there's a conflict of interest. But it's awesome to have you on board on the call today, mate, to share the technicalities. And just for everybody else that's listening in, as we roll through here, I'm going to be pretty much throwing the call over to Leo and Greg to sort of steer this, because I probably, like most of you, I am completely in the dark about most of the things that are happening on the Helium network, especially that's transpired in maybe the last 4 to 6 months. Prior to that, I felt really clued up. I felt very confident in order to be able to do videos to share information. But there have just been so many changes on all levels, whether it be technical front, whether it be all of the rules and the likes that we're working on the blockchain, and even to, well, there really is very little that I felt that I could actually share, which is why I haven't been doing any videos lately. But what I think actually we might actually just keep today's call on topic. I was going to sort of branch out and do a little bit of an update on where Helium was going, but we'll actually do that. I will do a follow-up call. So for today, Leo, could I maybe start with yourself? Now, if we could go right back to basics on what this HIP 70 is and the problems that it was meant to solve, because a lot of people on the call today may be people that sort of purchased a hotspot because of their interest in crypto, haven't been keeping a handle on what's going on, see lots of banter going backwards and forwards, but really have a little full transparency on what it's about. So, and I'm going to throw it over to yourself. You've got the floor. Give us a rundown on what you can tell us.
I've heard the word transparency a lot, which I really like. A lot of the reason why we're doing this HIP proposal or alternate HIP proposal is due to the lack of transparency that we feel was part of the HIP 70 process, and also some concerns that we have with governance of the Helium network overall. But just to get back to HIP 70, so HIP 70 is probably the most overarching change to the Helium network in a long time. So it basically amounts to a complete rewrite of the system, or re-architecture of the whole system. So it's a hugely consequential HIP, and it will change the way Helium operates quite substantially. So it's that's sort of one of the reasons why I think. Unfortunately, the hurry in which this has been introduced, where I think we had a week to discuss HIP 70, sorry, before it goes to a vote, and we're in the middle, or actually, I think we're towards the end of the voting procedure, and also due to the huge changes, I think there was a bit of a lack of evaluation of the different options, or at least in public. I mean, we have now got a blog entry that sort of illustrates the evaluation process of some of the components. But yeah, so the reason why we have concerns and why we've written this alternate HIP is really the transparency, governance, and also some of the due to the re-architecture, some centralization of the Helium network, and that's sort of where we asked I actually asked Rob, who I've worked with in a previous project, an enterprise project that was using Hedera as a backend. I asked Rob if he could assist me with the decentralization aspects of this proposal, because I might have 6 years of LoRa experience, but I'm not a crypto expert or an expert on decentralized ledger technologies. So we've asked Rob to see if he can give us a hand, and he introduced us to Greg. So that and thank you, Greg, for being available, because as I said, if there's any questions on the DLT and on the actual technology, that's not my area. Just to quickly go through the big areas of HIP 70. So HIP 70 will, as I said, change all of the aspects of Helium. So Helium currently runs on a blockchain that was developed by Helium Inc., as it was called, or Nova Labs as they're now. As you, Ian, I'm sure have felt over the last 6 months, there has been some issues with the scaling of that blockchain. So block times have increased, and a lot of issues around. There's been changes in terms of moving the blockchain from hotspots. So previously, all hotspots had a full copy of the blockchain. The light hotspot systems were introduced fairly recently, a few months ago. So that introduced the concept of validators that then were tasked with validating network processes or transactions. But with HIP 70, the proposal is actually to run on a level or layer 1 blockchain that is not developed by Helium. So it's going to be a generic layer 1, and the proposal that Nova has put forward in HIP 70 is that it's a technology called Solana. The other major change is that all the operative tasks, things like proof of coverage, and also the accounting of data sent over the network, will now be handled by initially one Oracle, which is basically just a piece of software that initially will be run by Nova Labs, and there is some concepts of at some future stage to have that run by multiple entities, but there is unfortunately precious little in the HIP 70 proposal on how this is going to be done. So it's more like, yeah, we'll run this ourselves at the moment, in the future at some stage, with no roadmap, with nothing determined. we might basically decentralize this again. And that is sort of one of the areas of our concern. Another big change is also the LoRa network server. So another thing that Helium did initially was to develop their own network server.
Leo, if we might just actually be given that I know we had a discussion earlier on, so I've got more of an awareness, and a lot of the discussion that we had off camera an hour or so ago was actually quite enlightening to myself. But I'd like to just sort of break it down just to make sure that those that actually do watch the video can fully comprehend various sections, because I think to really understand the HIP 70 and to understand as we roll on today, where we're talking about your HIP 71 proposal, we'll understand which part of HIP 70 we're actually linking into. So if I can I'll just give a little bit of a summary here on what I think you just said in my language, and then you correct me if I'm wrong, mate, by all means, jump in. So obviously we ran on the Helium system. We had the Helium blockchain going back 2 years to basically where we are now. It worked moderately okay for a while, but just the larger the network got, the more hotspots there were on. The system was found to be incredibly unreliable and couldn't scale. Phase one was to take it off the hotspots, as you said, and we put it into the validator system. But now, how long would you expect the validators have been online, Leo? Would it be about 3 months, 3 to 4 months?
That'd probably be about right. Yeah, it would be about right. The introduction, it has taken a fair amount of time, and 3 months would be about right. I would have to check, but I agree.
Let's say about 4 months. Now, I could bring the data up on the screen, but really I'll leave that for another call to go into more detail. But essentially putting it onto the validator network was meant to make the system run incredibly smooth. But for whatever reason, we've now found in hindsight that the validator that the Helium blockchain, and maybe this will fall into Greg's domain, I don't know, but essentially the Helium blockchain, or the language, for want of a better word, just wasn't capable of scaling to the stage where we needed, given the amount of proof of coverage, traffic going backwards and forwards, the amount of data transfer going backwards and forwards, and I guess any of the other functions that are happening in the background. So am I on track at the moment that would be pretty accurate sort of synopsis, Leo?
That is a very good summary, I would say. Yeah, no, I can completely agree with that.
Okay, terrific. So now moving forward from validators, we've found that the validators, which were meant to be the savior, have also struggled. So now it's a matter of finding out what can we do to resurrect this, because I'm like most people, I'm sitting back as a node operator or a hotspot operator. I'm watching the traffic go down. I'm watching the network have a bunch of basically failures in various levels. Sometimes there's no proof of coverage for a couple of days. Sometimes it's the Explorer goes down. Sometimes the traffic, or rather the proof of coverage, is breaks where it's not working as it should. Leo, I know that when we talk about you as a sensor operator, about its unreliability, that the traffic is just not getting through. Effectively, the machine was broken. So Helium has gone looking for an answer. The answer, as part of HIP 70 here, the answer to fix the network was to move off the Helium blockchain and to move to some other layer one or some other blockchain. And layer one is just basically what the terminology is. And they've selected, and I've been following the social media channels. I know that there is a bunch of people that are sort of saying Solana was the wrong choice. I've got to say, I've got no idea. I know that you can potentially talk on the transparency of was Solana maybe the correct network. Really, at the end of the day, it's not the focus of this call, but feel free, mate, to share your opinion. So we're moving to that other network. Sorry, no, mate. We're moving to that other network with the hope of actually fixing our machine to make it work into the future. So now, that was just to, I suppose, make sure that it was spoken from a perspective of people that may not have a technical rundown. So now if let's, I guess, talk about would it be fair at this stage, because I don't want to sort of hold Greg here without, you know, bringing him into the conversation, who is going to be best to talk about?
Let's just break the things down a little further, and because what this proposal wasn't going to be and isn't at all this is another blockchain technology. Like our issue was that the transparency and governance structures weren't there, and there was not an independent evaluation process. So the reason I asked Greg or Rob to help us is to actually show another example. The HIP is very clear in that we want to have an independent evaluation between all of the systems. So our HIP alternative is not about saying, hey, this is the way to go. One of the problems that I see with HIP 70 being such a large piece of work, that everything is thrown in. And I actually agree with, I would say, 2/3 of HIP 70 you're running in open doors. The architectural changes, a lot of those things are great. Unfortunately, there's a few things in there that because they're thrown into one and it's one vote, that is our problem. So there should have been an independent evaluation, like the blog entry that Abhay has published 2 days ago. It's great, but it is actually not in the HIP. It came halfway through the vote. Now, if you actually did an independent evaluation, that should have been in the HIP rather than published halfway through the vote. And it doesn't actually have all of the options that I think should have been included. I mean, it has a couple of Solana competitors, but it doesn't go outside of that kind of realm of a blockchain. So that's sort of a part of the issue there as well.
So Leo, can I just start you? I know that you have raised a HIP proposal, if I'm using the correct language, which is HIP 71, and
it's HIP XY because you're not supposed to number it. There could be another one in between.
I didn't say that. Okay, so HIP XY. So HIP XY that is potentially HIP 71. It could be 72 or 73 if it gets accepted. Given that there are all of these things that have all been put into one basket, and mate, I am completely with you, and I don't know who at Helium or at Nova is making these decisions, but frankly, actually you had a good analogy earlier on, which might sort of just repeat what you said to me earlier on.
That's actually part of the problem. I mean, we don't know who the Helium Foundation actually is, or we don't know. There's this gray area of governance where HIPs are supposed to have code. They have to be explained. Now, there seems to be these two classes of HIPs. If the HIPs come from Nova Labs, they seem to be going very quickly through the system. If there are HIPs that are proposed elsewhere, they seem to be lagging and waning. So all we can do really is ask for transparency and good governance, and that's basically why we made this HIP and took the time to actually write this HIP and to explain the decentralization aspects of them and how a proper DLT could be used to have it decentralized from the word go, rather than this, we'll make it decentralized again, just trust us. That's the part that I think Greg will be much better to be able to enlighten us than I will.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, actually, Greg, I'll because again, I could probably give what I believe my opinion, but I think this is going to be far better for yourself, because we're using the term centralized network versus decentralized network. And again, it's a term that I've got an opinion on, but I'd love to actually hear it from yourself, if you wouldn't mind, on is Helium right now, as it currently stands, a centralized network or a decentralized network? moving to Solana or whoever the next level one is, does that make any changes? And if not, what are the benefits of doing something that would make it different to what we have right now?
Sure. So, I mean, you've just opened a massive can of worms. The entire industry
Should I put the lid on it?
Of DLT, the entire industry of DLT is generally confused over what decentralization means, and there is no common agreement. It's a goal, and I don't think anyone can truly ever say that any particular chain is entirely decentralized to its ultimate, specification, if you want. And everybody, defines it or, defines it to suit their particular narratives to a smaller or greater extent. So what decentralization means really is that there is no central point of control. Technically speaking, that's what it means at the simplest definition. It means that if I have a bank account and I want to say the three of us are in business, and I'm holding the checkbook, yes. I'm centralizing the money spending, and I can do whatever I want with that money. I sign checks, and you might disagree with me, but that's just tough. A decentralized way of managing this shared bank account would be where two of us have to sign a check out of the three of us. So at this point, it's no longer me deciding to spend money. It's me and Leo, or me and you, or you and Leo. And we've decentralized that function. We've made it no longer one central person. We've made it a group decision. In terms of DLT, so with DLTs, the idea generally is, it started with banks and Bitcoin. I think in Greece, there was a major issue with real money. So banks were able to take money from people's accounts in order to fund the government. And if you had more than a certain amount of euros in your accounts, the bank could literally, sweep it up and spend it on infrastructure or whatever else. And at the same time, Bitcoin was created to basically say nobody will control Bitcoin funds, Bitcoin money. Once it's in your pockets, you control that money. You decide. Once it's in your wallet, as we call it in the space of DLT, you control it. Nobody can take it away from you. And moreover, the Bitcoin system isn't run by one entity. It's run by thousands of people, technically or theoretically, that are running these nodes, that are making decisions, or rather that are agreeing upon decisions. So back to the checkbook analogy, they're all agreeing that a particular transaction is valid. So nobody can insert a transaction into the ledger and say, I'm taking Ian's money. The entire network has to agree that this transaction is valid. And if the network as a whole doesn't agree with this, then that doesn't happen. So no one person is in charge. So I try to think, and typically the way Hedera looks at things is there are really two families of decentralization. The first is the operation of the nodes themselves. Who is running the computer network? Who is operating those nodes? This piece of software that's in the hotspots today in the Helium network that are validating proof of coverage. And now separating this from the governance, which is the decision making about the network. So should we upgrade the network software to a new version? Whose decision is this? Is it one single person, or is it a group decision? Which features do we put into the next upgrade of the software? Again, is this one person's decision, or is it multiple people's decision? And so what we try and do at Hedera, and like I said, there are multiple degrees of decentralization across different systems, is to make sure that the governance, the decision-making is decentralized, and that is currently delegated to what we call the Hedera Council, which is a group of today 26 Fortune 500 companies, with the likes of IBM, Google, Tata Communications, EFT POS out in Australia, that I'm sure you guys will know very well, and many, many more. We'll grow this to 39. And they're distributed around the world. They're distributed across different industries, and they're only on the council for 2 years, renewable once. Sorry, 3 years, can be renewed once, and then they're out to be replaced by somebody else. Mm-hmm. So we have this constant rotation of who's making decisions across different continents and across different industries to make sure that none of this can be centralized. No government can enforce decision making. No industry can enforce decision making. And if somebody is in a position of power for 3 years, their position of power is up for renewal and ultimately no longer up for renewal, so that if somebody feels or gets too comfortable with making decisions, we're replacing them with somebody who has to kind of, start again from fresh. So we're removing all conflicts of interest in doing so. So we're decentralizing the decision making here. And some people will say, yeah, but this group of people is 26 people, they're all sitting in a room together, they're a decision making power. They are, but they individually are able to vote in equal fashion on every decision. And every single one of them is able to say, no, I disagree with this, or yes, I agree with this. They vote on everything. Some votes are majority votes, some votes are absolute majority. Some votes have veto power. But it's an equal system where everybody has equal votes, no matter the size of the company on the council. We also have universities, we have non-profits. So again, it's not all about money. On the decentralization of the network itself, there really are two considerations. The first one is making sure that no one computer can make decisions on behalf of the rest of the network. So let's say Leo's hotspots on the Helium network, and I'm not suggesting this is possible, but for argument's sake, let's say Leo's hotspot becomes powerful enough that it can make decisions on behalf of the entire network. It could basically claim that it's covering 24/7 and nobody else is available for coverage, and he basically hoovers up all the coins. So we don't want that to happen. We want to make sure that all of the computers are all participating in this distribution decision making, proof of coverage decision making. The other aspect of decentralization is making sure that you can't stop this decision making from happening by targeting a minority number of operators or nodes on the network. And traditionally, with Bitcoin, this is 51%. So you have to control 51% of the computers participating in this decision making in order to subvert the decision making. This is because it is proof of work, and arguably you can attack a Bitcoin network with 33%, but I won't go into the detail there. It's highly energy inefficient. There's a new generation of ledgers that are using proof of stake, and there the mathematical sort of threshold for being able to stop consensus is theoretically 33%. So you have to subvert, or you have to convince 33% of the network population, the server or computer population, to do something malicious in order to stop consensus. And that's mathematically proven. There's an awful lot of research and papers on this. Now, in the quest for speed and efficiency, a lot of networks are having to sacrifice something, and there's this thing that we call the trilemma in DLT or blockchain, which is a triangle of speed, security, and decentralization. And whenever you pull one out, so if you want to increase speed, technically, or traditionally you have to reduce decentralization, so you reduce the number of computers participating, therefore everything is faster, or you reduce security. By having less security, you can improve your speed and so on and so forth. So a lot of networks have kind of tried to achieve speed, and often at the expense of security. So we find a lot of proof of stake networks have a temporary leader. That temporary leader, let's say it's Leo in this case, is responsible for collecting all of the transactions, all the token transfers, all the cryptocurrency transfers, and put them into a block that he then, you know, signs and seals and shares with the rest of the network that validates that block. And subject to the rest of the network agreeing on the contents, that gets applied. Leo for a short period, and then the buck passes on to me, and then on to Yui, and then it rotates over time.
Mm-hmm.
The problem here is that if I can attack Leo, and I happen to know who Leo is because I'm one of the network servers,
yes.
If I can do a denial of service on Leo, I can stop him from producing this block.
Right.
And then the network might go, oh my God, no, Leo's no longer responding. Let's switch over to Ian. But I know that you are now producing blocks. So I'll target my denial of service to you. We've now completely centralized what was decentralized in the first place.
Okay.
By making one person, one computer responsible for generating the information that the others will validate. That is the case in 99.999% of all proof of stake networks, which is not the case with Hedera and a couple of others, which I won't name. But yeah, essentially, this is what decentralization is all about. It's trying to make sure that no one person, no one computer can affect or be affected to prevent this decision making from happening.
Mate, that's there is so much great information in there, and I've got to say, as a person who's moderately tech savvy, I was trying my best to keep up. Hopefully, those are sort of watching along. And incidentally, just to let you guys know, we've now got about 15 odd people. I'll just sort of just give a quick shout out to Roy. We've also got Network Bits. We've got Sydney Watch fans. We've got 619 OTA. So a few other people have joined us in the YouTube chat. So guys, if you do have questions in the YouTube channel, just recognize that you are on about a 60-second odd delay. So, but if you could type your questions in there, and if it's something that Leo or Greg can assist with, I'll basically get those questions out and ask them. Greg, with the explanation that you just went through at the moment, and the blockchain, sorry, was it Hedera? Is that am I pronouncing
Hedera?
Hedera
with an A, yeah.
Okay, with an A. So obviously we've had our Helium blockchain, and the current proposed from HIP 70 is Solana. But Solana is still a centralized blockchain. Is that correct? Where it's still basically controlled by an identity or a group of identities that could make incorrect decisions. Is that correct? I guess if this is a conflict at any point, I'm happy to cross over to Leo, because I know that it may be seen as potentially a conflict to yourself. And this is everything on this call.
I don't want to have this too much about like making choices about layer one technologies. I mean, what I really liked about Greg's explanation in terms of decentralization is this governance council that Hedera uses, and also its enterprise focus. So compare that with the way the Helium network currently is governed. Since April this year, I was part of the AMA that announced all of this, and we had a couple of questions. We are supposedly governed by the, or when I say we, I mean the Helium network, of which we are a part of, governed by the Helium Foundation. Mm-hmm. Helium Inc. was renamed into Nova Labs, and it's basically the technical developing arm of the network. Unfortunately, and I have asked these questions in the Discord, we don't know, for example, who the members of that Helium Foundation are. There's an old website before, it was called the Decentralized Wireless Alliance, DY.
Yes, DY,
and,
yeah.
So there's an old team page, and there we can sort of assume who might be there. There's also nothing that is published, so we don't have any bylaws. Generally, I mean, I run a non-for-profit here in Australia, or a part of a board that runs a non-for-profit. You have your constitution published. I've been asking these kinds of questions, or minutes of meetings, all of these kinds of things. So there seems to be a lot of catching up, and that is really what the focus of the HIP is about. The reason I have sort of used Hedera as an example is it appears to have the technology to actually allow these. At the moment, all of our transactions are on-chain, on the Hedera, on the Helium blockchain. With HIP-70, only financial transactions will be on what is proposed to be the Solana chain. But all of the real transaction in terms of data that a hotspot receives and sends to an LNS, or proof of concept transactions, will then only be in oracles. And these oracle, at least in the initial phase, will be centralized and run by Nova. So to me, the issue isn't what is the L1 technology, although I do believe that it is an important choice. The issue is decentralizing these oracles, so that as much information as possible is actually still written on the blockchain and is actually public to every network participant. And I believe, and again, that's more Greg's scenario, with a technology like Hedera, that is actually possible from the word go, rather than sort of decentralization by hope, where we hope it might be decentralized at some point in time in the future, but we'd have no idea when and how it's going to happen.
Yeah, totally, man. So I'm just reading a few questions are starting to come in from the room about the HIP-70 and the like. So it's good we're getting a little bit of engagement there from the crew listening online. Let's go back to, we'll call it the HIP-71, even though I know it's the HIP-XY, because it doesn't exist as a HIP at the moment. So your HIP, as I understand, is essentially to try and increase the transparency of a lot of these decisions that are being made behind closed doors by a group of people that we don't know who they are, and is there an agenda, isn't there an agenda, so on and so forth. How do people read the content that you have documented, that is the HIP-XY document? How do people get to that? And can you break down in dot points what's covered in that document, so maybe people can get behind you, or get behind yourself and Greg and the others that have put the document together, so that we can do something about trying to improve this situation and make it all far more transparent and out in the open?
That's a great point. So the way these HIPs work is basically they all happen on GitHub, which is a source code management or version control repository, publicly available. The URL is github.com/helium/HIP, HIP. And in this HIP repository, as is commonly referred to, are all the HIPs up to now. So there's anything from HIP-1 to HIP-70 is in that repository. The way we then create a new HIP is by what's called a pull request, and that is pull request for 80 where I would really encourage people to participate. So there's obviously a lot of conversation in the Helium ecosystem on the Discord, but for the HIP, and especially for HIP proposals, I would really suggest people to go to that GitHub repository. What I will do is I'll probably put it into the YouTube discussion. Just bear with me a second.
I'm actually looking for, I'm in our Discord, the AU915 Discord, and just looking for the direct link, but I can't find it.
It was in there somewhere in the general chat as well, but I will just drop it into the
YouTube chat.
YouTube chat now.
Thanks, mate.
If I can find the, yeah, there we go. Should be in there.
Okay, terrific. It will probably pop up in the chat.
I might send it to you in Discord as well, Ian. So you got it.
Yeah, that's terrific, mate. That'd be great. Actually, if you pop it back into the general, just stick it in the general discussion again. That way, others can see it as well.
Will do.
And incidentally, guys, I know that just looking. Because I did post this video, or rather a link to this video, in the Helium Discord group, in the HIP70 channel. If you're watching along and you're not part of the AU915, which is a Discord group that was started essentially for a focus on Australia and New Zealand, I'll put a link to that Discord in the YouTube channel as well. Feel free to join in with our Discord group because that's where Leo is very active, as well as a few others. It's just another option for you to follow along. Right, I'm just looking. Okay, so where are we scaling? I'm going to put that link in myself, Leo, because for some reason I don't see your link on there yet, whereas my link is showing up straight away, but it could be that it's my channel. So I don't know how this all works. All right. So if folks in the listening in on YouTube at the moment, if you could just let me know if the GitHub link is now showing on your screen and is now clickable, that would be terrific. And I know there's going to be a 60-second odd delay, so that will take a moment. So Leah, I guess very briefly, while we're waiting for some confirmation over there, the HIP70 document, in addition to talking about the centralization and the layer one and the likes, also has some really critical bits of information that you and I were both, I'm quite flabbergasted to see it all sort of bundled into one. What is the, as a sensor operator, as a network operator in South Australia, what do you see as one of the other areas of HIP70 that is causing a bit of a concern that's all to do with the whole HIP70 process?
Yeah, look, one of the if you will, the other end of the whole process is actually the data that sensors are sending is then picked up by applications and the sensor owners via what's called a LoRa, an LNS, which is a LoRaWAN network server. Now, as with the blockchain, Helium, and I do not want to be sort of sounding like I'm Nova or Helium bashing here. I mean, what these guys have achieved is fantastic. We have close to 1 million hotspots or gateways out there. At the time when these guys started, there wasn't a sufficient blockchain. So what they're doing with HIP70, as I mentioned before, around 70% is really necessary, and it is great. And one of those is actually using an off-the-shelf or an open source existing LoRa network server called ChirpStack. It's one of the two large open source LoRa network servers out there, and that will in future replace the what's currently called the console, the Helium console. So that is then going to be a fully featured LoRa network server that has all of the implementation details that the current system is lacking things like Class C support. I'm not going to get into all of those details, but also has a lot of the bugs ironed out. So, and that's again something I fully agree with. That at the moment the core dev team is completely stretched between running a blockchain, running a LoRa network server, and the network operation and the whole proof of concept. So the architectural change that is proposed in HIP 70 is great. Nothing to be said else to be said about that. The fact that you're not reinventing the wheel on the LoRa network server as well as on the blockchain is a good thing. It's just what we think is there should have been a lot more transparency and time taken to decide which blockchain that is. And I might get Greg to talk. I think Greg has been spending a few nights lately in actually setting up a test system on how you could actually scale gateway or LoRa Helium hotspots directly to an on-chain oracle. So he's actually been trying to model how this could look. That's the kind of evaluation process I would have expected before you make a major choice, rather than saying, okay.
Why do that, Leo? I mean, can't we just keep throwing mud at the wall and eventually some of it's going to stick? No, I'm with you 100%, mate. There's been so many decisions, and I mean, even in my non-technical ability, I look at some of the things that have happened over the last 6 months and I'm going, what sort of drugs are you guys smoking over there? I mean, that seems to be a really shitty choice that you've just made, and what sort of analysis was made. So I'll just, before we skip over, I brought up your HIP, what's the pool 480, which is the potential new HIP 71 or new HIP document. So in order for people who now have the link in the YouTube channel, what can they do to help to get this across the line in order to be able to add that more transparency that we're looking for? What can they do to, I suppose, add weight behind it?
If you have a GitHub account, you can actually comment, and there's actually been a couple of comments on there already. So it would be great to get a bit of engagement and get input. I mean, I have been part of kickstarting this. James has been great. Tony has been helpful. Greg and Pathorn have been adding. So they're all the people on the authors list. But we probably would love to have other people's input on this. What can be improved? What can be added? The other thing is, obviously there's conversations in the main Helium Discord. There's a HIP general channel in the official Helium HIP that I would encourage people to use to say, hey, what's happening on this? Where is it going? At the moment, I'm waiting for feedback from the foundation as to the next steps. What's generally happening is that it's going to be presented at a monthly Helium community call. The reason why we are pushed this HIP out a bit faster than I otherwise would have is obviously because the vote is currently ongoing, and we wanted to make sure that people know there is actual alternatives. So the other thing, obviously, participate in the vote. I mean, the vote at the moment is abysmally low in terms of the amount of gateway owners that have taken part in the vote. Is unfortunately very low. So do participate. I mean, there is a few cents that the burn transaction will cost you, but if you want to have a say in the network's operations and how this is going to be governed in the future, that is obviously a way to go. And then there is the HIP 70 discussion channel in Discord, but yeah, I'm not sure how productive that one is. It's probably it's a scroll. It's a long scroll, and unfortunately, it's my chain versus your chain. So
well,
it's not something I'm going to get into.
It has actually been asked by somebody in the a YouTube channel asking about Solana versus ADA, and guys, just for that person, I mean, we could obviously go on, and there would potentially be another half a dozen options to consider, all of which probably all have their merits, but definitely not the focus of here. So,
but it would have been or it should have been a part of the foundation's role to ensure that this is a transparent process. I mean, unfortunately, at the moment, a lot of this comes down to the Solana guys are great. Our teams work well together, and that's why we're going that way. So that's really, to me, what it boils down to, the current communications. And all of the information that has sort of come out of woodwork afterwards looks to me more like something that's been put together after the fact, rather than a transparent and independent evaluation process.
Yeah, man. Look, the one thing that I can definitely say here, my outlook on life is reasonably optimistic of just about everything. So I'll generally try and find the positives about what's happening if I can find it. But the one thing that I really want more than anything in our network is transparency. I'm quite happy for people in the know to make some decisions, but explain to us why you've made it in a completely transparent, open fashion, and even better still, maybe put things to the vote if there are other alternatives. Because you're right, it does only cost a few cents, as far as I'm aware, to actually cast that vote. But we live in this world that a lot of people, I guess, are just feeling like their vote isn't going to count for much anyway. But every vote does count. Coming back to your GitHub, I'm looking at it here. You mentioned joining GitHub. Are comments of a non-technical basis, like for probably the bulk of people watching the video, are not going to be technical people that can really add a lot of technical ability, but just to add general support to your GitHub proposal? Is there any benefit in that whatsoever, or is it really the comments to be put on there are really only of a technical nature?
I'm generally I would say if they're of technical, not just technical, sorry, technical probably not the right word, but if they can improve governance procedures or have ideas, they're great in GitHub. Otherwise, I would say general support. There is the HIP general channel in Discord. There is there's a fair bit going on Twitter by the looks of it, but I'm not sort of part of the social media scene. Reddit is also an area where you can have your voice heard. So I'm sure there's other areas. GitHub tends to be where if you have something to add, and that doesn't have to be of technical nature. I mean, a lot of the problems that we're trying to highlight are not technical, are to do with transparency, to do with governance, to do with communications. So that's not necessarily technical, but yeah, I don't want to have the GitHub go into a why not XYZ blockchain.
No,
it's not what this proposal is about. What this proposal is calling for is transparency and an independent evaluation process. We have used Hedera as what we believe a really excellent example of the technology, but what we would call for is a real evaluation process.
Yeah, totally agree, mate. I really I wouldn't think there would be a single person watching this video that would disagree. I don't think anybody wants to be part of a network that's controlled by Big Brother, and Big Brother can do whatever they want, whenever they want, and never get asked the question. So completely. Guys, I'm just looking at the time, conscious of this. We've just hit our hour, and unfortunately, I do actually have to have work on my night shift tonight, so I can stick around for another 15 minutes or so. But just so you're aware that we're sort of coming up to the end of this, and I'm not entirely sure at this point if there is a load more information that you would like to share. But Leo, I'll let you steer this last bit.
what I would love to see is if Greg can maybe give a little bit of a rundown on I've actually been on a field days for the last 2 days, actually spruiking the Helium network and showing how the Helium network can make a difference in the real world. So I have been off the air a little bit, but I know that Greg has been doing some modeling work on a test net, and I'm hoping that we can actually introduce this into the HIP, because we constantly hear that HIPs have to include code, which I haven't actually seen on many HIPs at all. What I'm hoping is that Greg can actually show some of these code as part of our HIP as well. So maybe Greg, if you can share or I'm not sure what you can share about your work over the last day or so.
Yeah, so I've been writing a POC, a proof of concept for POC, proof of coverage, using the Hedera network, and the idea, which the architecture here, which is what we presented in the alternative HIP, is one where hotspots would be publishing their beacon reports and witness reports directly to the blockchain, directly to Hedera. It still includes an oracle, which is a system which basically inspects all of this data and decides how to reward hotspot operators based on the beacon reports and the witness reports that have been recorded on chain. And then, as per HIP 70, uses that same blockchain to then transfer tokens to the hotspot operators to reward them. So the main difference here is, and I'll highlight transparency again, is that the hotspots are writing their reports to the blockchain, or they're writing a proof to the blockchain that they've published a report to maybe a centralized entity or to a centralized oracle. The big difference here is that technically anyone could then run a verifier, if you want, which can look at the very same data that the oracle is processing, run through the exact same process, and verify that they are reaching the same conclusion. So even though there is, or there could be, a single oracle, that oracle is being monitored, is being watched by everybody or anybody who wants to do that, and can be, identified as being malicious if it happens to be. And that really is the ethos of decentralization, right? You don't want if an actor is being malicious, you want them to be found out. You don't want them to get away with it. A later iteration of this could be where multiple oracles are actually contributing to making the payment. So they're all analyzing the same data, and they're all coming to the same conclusion that Leo needs to be paid for his hotspot, and they are collaborating to make this payment happen. And we can do this in a 2 out of 3 manner, for example, where if I disagree, it doesn't matter because Ian and Leo both agree, so the payment happens. Or if I'm offline, then Ian and Leo are still online as oracles, and they're still analyzing data and processing data. So in this analogy, I, Leo, and Ian are oracles. So this is somewhat different to what was proposed in HIP 70, where, as far as I understand, hotspots would send their reports to an oracle. If that oracle were to be malicious, say it's me and I don't like Leo, was to stop me from discarding Leo's reports and not paying him. And how does he prove that he sent me reports? How does he prove that he was online? Well, maybe there are witness reports, but I could discard those, right? Because I know they are witnessing Leo. So we're proposing, as well as talking about the opening up of the the selection process, and as Leo mentioned, we're proposing an alternative which is more transparent in terms of the the publishing of reports, and I'm still putting this proof of concept together. It needs a few finishing touches, and who knows, I might contribute it to the head.
One example to bring this back to the current Helium network. You mentioned validators, Ian, previously, and
yes,
these guys have done an excellent job to really help the network, because obviously before Light Hotspot, the network was really on its knees, and some of these validators really have stepped up and put a lot of time and effort into ensuring that the network can scale. And to me, these decentralized oracles would really be a great way to use the technical skills and the skills that the validator operators have gained over the past, to actually still have these people involved in the governance of the Helium network on a technical level.
Sorry, mate, I'm just posting something in the group whilst you were talking just then. Sorry, my mind was focused on the.
No, it's really just sort of the validators, which are really in the HIP 70. There is no future for validators. In what we have been proposing, there we can see a potential future for validator operators as operators of decentralized oracles. So using the skills that these guys obviously have gained on the Helium network, and utilizing those skills and the enthusiasm that some of these guys have put or displayed in the past, rather than just having them go off into the sunset. So that's sort of another thing that I thought is worth bringing up.
Is that actually mentioned in your HIP proposal? Yeah, definitely.
Unfortunately, yeah, it's all the whole writing of this was under a lot of pressure and totally had to happen very quickly. That's actually a very good point, Ian. What you can also do in HIP is you can, if you dislike some of the parts, or if you want to add components to parts of our HIP, you can raise what's called a pull request and have changes submitted to our HIP proposal, and we really would encourage that too. So people that have the GitHub or the source control skills to do that. Another way of doing it, the repository that is containing the HIP XY, which is mine, also has the ability to raise issues. So you can actually contribute issues where you can suggest changes and things like that as well.
Oh, terrific, mate. Well, it is. That's what I feel like this whole process at the moment is lacking, is that ability for us as the end users or the network builders to really have a voice. Because I was pretty staggered when I saw like a week ago that the vote was out for HIP 70, and I was thinking, man, okay, I was struggling to understand every component of it. I read enough to know, holy shit, yeah, there's so many components here. I like this bit, but I don't like this bit. But how do I have the ability to sort of say, well, please change that for me to give a vote? That doesn't really exist in the system at the moment, but we've got to get our voice out there somewhere. I've just put the link to the Helium vote into the YouTube chat. I'll also make sure that these are linked in the YouTube video once it's uploaded. Besides going on to Discord, or besides going into your GitHub document to place some comments on there, is there anything else, Leo, that you think the end users could do just to voice the fact that they're not really happy with the vote as it stands at the moment, as in like the process, not the vote itself, but the process of needing to cast a vote on this big bucket of things that have been joined together?
There is a big Helium event in New York. If you want to fly over, I'm not sure.
Well, hang on.
So you can put your personal opinion there. I'm not sure. Obviously, commenting in this video, and hopefully we can actually get some people. I mean, I would love to actually have more people from the foundation involved in this conversation.
Yeah,
I have sent quite a few emails. Unfortunately, the buy-in from the foundation doesn't seem to be there. Sort of. To me, this is very much like a bit of a Matrix movie. It's sort of the illusion of choice, rather than real choice. So
yeah.
I think we are all sort of being fed alternate realities here. So just need to wake up and make our voices heard. I mean, in the end, it is the people's network, and I would prefer to keep it that way.
Yeah, so would I, mate, definitely. And yes, it does definitely feel like the Matrix moment of the red pill or the blue pill, but you don't really know what's going to do what.
It definitely is hip. I've never seen hip 70 as the red or blue pill, but you're not far off.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right. So I'm just, as I say, guys, I'm just conscious of the time here, primarily for me to get to work, apart from anything else. Greg, you have been a real trooper, mate, to actually get up so early on a Sunday morning in the UK to be on our call. Is there anything else that you would like to add that maybe you've sort of taken off the conversation that we've been having here, sort of like as your closing comments? And I would love to have you come back again if Leo or anybody in the comments has anything specific they'd like to mention. I'd be only too happy to facilitate a follow-up if you're available at some point. But for now, just closing remarks for this call.
Yeah, for sure. No, nothing particular to add. I just, like I said on Discord, wherever this ends up, I wish the Helium network the best, and I wish this transition is as smooth as it can possibly be. I've thoroughly enjoyed working with Leo so far on this, and hopefully this can continue. Whatever the outcome, I hope you guys, as a network, as an alternative network to or a network to IoT sensors out there, are ultimately successful. That's what we want for anyone building decentralized technologies across the industry. So nothing for now, but I'm available should anyone want to ask any questions. I'm in the Helium Discord. I'm in Telegram. I'm
also in the Australian Discord now as well.
Yes, I am. Yes.
Okay, terrific. And what is your Discord handle, Greg? Are you happy to sort of share that so people can actually direct something specifically to you if they have any particular questions?
Yeah, I think it's not overly anonymous. It's Greg Scannard.
Greg, is it?
It probably says Hashgraph.
Okay.
I'm completely doxed, I'm afraid. For those who don't know, doxed means publicly known with my real name. I'm not sort of a hidden handle behind the mask.
Yeah, here we are talking about full transparency, yet we all have handles because we're all too scared for people to know who we are. But yes,
exactly.
I do see in the AU 915 you're down there with your full name. So, and yes, that transfers over into the Helium Discord as well. So,
yes, it's the same. I was tempted to use an alternative ID, but again, like I said in the Helium Discord, of course I will be shilling Hedera. Of course I will be promoting Hedera. That's what my job is all about.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, yeah, if I'd hidden behind an undisclosed identity, then I would be shooting myself in the foot when it comes to transparency. So.
Very true, mate. Well, look, I'll just sort of thank you for being on our call and being on the Helium Down Under channel. And mate, I would definitely love to have you back on again for a future call. and I'll let Leo sort of be the touch point there to identify where you can actually add expertise. Always difficult when you're dealing with the UK or the US to get on video calls, because obviously our time zones are not totally conducive, which is a bit of a pain, but never mind. That's what happens in the big wide world. So Greg, thank you so much for being here. Leo, for yourself, mate, just to close out our call for now, I would just like to, are you happy to give your opinion on people voting for HIP 70, yes or no right now? We did ask somebody in the group sort of say, look, are you saying to vote for it? I figure at this point, from my perspective, I will be voting yes, even though I don't like a lot of areas of it. I really don't want to, at this stage, let's have a look on the vote. Right now, we have 9.64 against, and we've got 90% for HIP 70. Do you have anything? Are you happy to share your own position?
Look, I'm happy to share that I have voted no for obvious reasons that I've outlined before, but I would not want to comment on how people should vote. I would just encourage people to vote. That's as clear as that. The other thing that sort of following on from what Greg was saying as well, and I think it's a good outro in terms of we are here because we believe that helium, the helium network can make a real difference. Mm-hmm. It has great utility if it's done properly. So what we really are here for, and that's why we've been doing all of this work on the HIP, is we do believe that there's a lot of value, and what has been done is great so far. It's just that with the network growing, we believe that governance and transparency need to keep up rather than just keep going on like a small network and iterating. I mean, and as I said, there's been some great work done in the past, but what I also dislike about the way that the communication has been going is really, we have the current blockchain is a mess, and I believe Amir actually called it spaghetti code. And then on the other hand saying, oh, well, but we are the only people that can be trusted to make this work. So let's just get some different perspectives on this and have some independence in the evaluation process. I think the architectural choices are great. I keep saying that. The fact that we're not reinventing the wheel on both ends of the network side of things is also great. But let's get some transparency. Let's get some governance into all of this.
Terrific, mate. Thank you so much for that. It is such a shame that you can't vote no and say why you're voting no.
And that's why we're throwing everything into one bucket. I mean, unfortunately, we have the same thing in our parliament, I'm sure, in most parliaments. When you want to get something unpalatable through, you actually put it in with a lot of good bits. Yeah. So unfortunately, the way this vote's been going is there's been some unpalatable parts mixed in with a lot of great stuff. And I believe breaking down some of this would be a good thing, which is actually what I think the foundation's been suggesting for our HIP, breaking it down between, and I'm more than open for suggestions, but I think the same thing should be true for HIP 70.
Yeah, terrific, mate. Well, I for one will be going into the HIP 70 Discord channel. I haven't been very active on Discord for so long on the official Helium one, because I didn't feel that I had anything of value to add. But I'm definitely going to go on there after this call and just basically make the statement that I like a lot of the changes, but I really wish that we could have actually broken these into smaller chunks. My opinion and my comment will probably mean nothing, but the fact is, at least I've had my voice put out there in a market where the decision makers can actually see it. So, and I would encourage anybody that's on our call here today to do the same, even if there's only half a dozen of us that add a comment and just type it from your heart. It's going to be a good thing. It may or may not actually change the result, but the fact is we're doing something to try.
Let's be realistic on the result of HIPs. Things have changed afterwards. There have been a number of HIPs that have, or there's one that's been reversed recently. So that's sort of another thing that is a bit, let's call it dodgy on the governance side of things. If you actually stick to the process, these things shouldn't really happen or shouldn't need to happen. So that's sort of why I know governance and transparency are not the sexiest topics, but if we want to have this network built for real telcos or real enterprises to actually use this network, we're going to need governance that is actually up for those enterprise users to actually want to commit to the network. And that has been my real problem. I mean, we are actually wanting to use this network for commercial purposes. And if you cannot rely on the governance of something that's as critical as that, it's not going to happen. So that really is why we sort of took the time and the work to see if we can get some changes done on that.
Yeah, fantastic. Maybe we'll actually just leveraging off the way that you started that about it not being very sexy. Maybe it's time to bring sexy back. I feel like I should actually play some sort of video clip over the top of this clip now with some, but I think I won't challenge my YouTube capabilities by doing that.
I will certainly not be able to add anything to that.
Fantastic. All righty. Well, guys, you've got the link for HIP 70. Now, actually, after speaking to Leo, because I was pretty much of the opinion that, okay, well, look, my voice, I want to vote, and I want the changes that I want the network more stable, so I have to vote yes. But given the fact of what Leo is stating here, I will be voting no, and I will be putting my reasons for in the Discord channel. Unfortunately, linking them both together won't mean anything, and the fact that right now I'm in the 10%, less than 10% no vote, likelihood is we're going to be voted out anyway. But at least, hey, we've given it our best shot. We will actually host another one of these calls over the coming weeks. Leo, would you be interested, mate? And I'm throwing you on the spot here, the question without notice, but as a person that actually runs a sensor network, I'd love to actually, and I'm very passionate. I mean, proof of coverage was great, and proof of coverage, I'm expecting that the proof of coverage, as in earning HNT, is going to continue regardless of what we call that, whether it's IoT, whether it's, oh goodness, I've lost a bit of a track of actually what.
Let's not get into those weeds at the moment.
Yeah, but we're going to be earning something for our hotspots being turned on, and I'm very much of the opinion that if we can put in the work to make that network actually usable, then I think that we have got one of the few cryptocurrencies, or one of the few fundamentally strong cryptocurrencies out there where it's got true fundamental use, but it's only got fundamental use if we can get the architecture right. And so I would love you, mate, if there's any chance of you being able to come on for a future call with you and I, and I don't even know if Jay over in Adelaide, if he's still active.
Unfortunately, see, that's the sad part. Yeah. A lot of the pioneers in Australia have faded away because of the issues and because of some of the perceptions of the lack of choice and transparency. I've actually spoken to him recently. So there's and you can see that in the Australian Discord. It's been becoming increasingly very quiet. A lot of the people that were very enthusiastic have gone away, and I hope that we can actually reverse some of that.
Well, it's funny, mate. As a moderator for two of the Australian Helium Facebook groups, and obviously being the founder of the AU 915, for a good 3 to 4 months, all of the groups were just a flurry of positivity and curiosity and excitement. And for the last 2 months, it's become I want to sell my hotspot. Who wants to buy it? Which is such a shame. But I do feel that if people just hold out, and we're going to have to go through some dark times here on multiple fronts. We're going to go through dark times with the network. We're going to go through dark times with crypto, but it's going to come back again if we put in the yards to actually make this network usable. And that's where I'd love to, Matt, is to segue into.
And there is users out there, but that's sort of been a criticism unfairly leveled, I think, at Helium, that there is no actual usage. I don't think that's correct. That there is a lag. LoRaWAN's sensor deployments don't happen overnight.
No.
So there's always going to be, and you can't deploy any sensors when there's no network. So I think that is a very unfair criticism of Helium, and I do believe that there's utility, there's usefulness in Helium if it's governed properly.
Yeah, terrific. Well, I would love to come back with a future call and just talk about basically sensor applications and just to try and stimulate people's minds for what the network might become over the next 12 to 18 months, which will help them stay the course during the dark periods, and especially through the crypto winter when we're earning maybe, goodness, 5 or 10 cents to operate a node, which you used to get $5 or $10 a day. We've got to change our mindset a little bit to think of our hotspots as something more than a get rich overnight scheme.
And let's face it, these things can be tweaked, and no doubt will be tweaked over time. So
totally.
And as for the conversation, you're sort of in a decent time zone for me.
Yeah.
It's Greg that's suffering in time zone wise, rather than me here.
Fantastic. Well, guys, I will just once again thank you both for being on the call here today. We will bring it to an end at this point. Guys, for those of you who for watching it live, we've had over 20 watching live at any one point. And the great thing is for the first time ever for a Helium Down Under video is the fact that audience has been quite diverse across the world as a result of, I guess, the post in the Discord. So I'd encourage anybody who is not part of our AU915 Discord, look back through the thread. I'll make sure a link is put in this video once it's actually uploaded to YouTube. Come and join us on the AU915. I know it's just another link for you, another group to be part of, but what's great I find about AU915 is there's some actually really passionate users in there. I'm blown away. When I started this group, I had no idea of the depth of knowledge that was going to fall into this channel. So come and join us in the AU915. There's also a couple of Australian Facebook groups. I'll post those in the links. I won't bother about putting them into our chat here. But come and join us if you are listening in from across the pond in the US or Europe or wherever you might be in the world. But with that for now, guys, I'd like to thank you for all of your time, those that are listening in. And if you are watching this video and you have managed to watch it to this point, I've got to do the YouTube channel owner and sort of say, please hit the like button. But I'm hoping you will have hit it by now and subscribe to our channel so you can keep abreast of anything new that we bring out on the AU915 region here on the Helium Down Under channel. Greg, Leo, you're champions for being on the call. High five, Leo, up there. High five, that's it, bang. And Greg, I'm sorry you don't have a camera, but just recognize that I was giving you a high five as well. We'll catch everybody on the next Helium Down Under channel. Catch you later, guys.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.